45 seconds, everyone. Welcome back, everyone. We are continuing the conversation on the denverchannel.com and Facebook Live, so thank you for sticking with us as we continue our conversation with the four Democratic members here.
And we'll start with you, Donna. We'll do a series of 3 yes or no questions. A town in California has offered a guaranteed wage of $500 to low-income residents. Would you support such a plan here in Colorado, yes or no?
No, I think we've already got the mechanism of an earned income tax credit here in Colorado that I think addresses those needs.
Okay.
I would guarantee a basic social safety net. I don't know that I'd call it a guaranteed income.
No, I would guarantee access to the skills people need for the jobs that would pay a family wage, rather than focus on income.
But I'm certainly excited by this concept that people are talking about, a universal basic income. I think we need to see some of the models that are being tested work before we would have the confidence to say we need to bring this to Colorado.
Yes or no, do you support spending state money to explore the creation of a Hyperloop transit system in Colorado, Carrie?
Explore it? Yes.
Do you support spending state money to explore it?
I'd have to take a closer look at that proposal. I know that's a very far future technology, and I would have to see whether the investment is worth it. I do believe we need to invest in new and modern technologies to upgrade our transportation network so that we're not all spending so much time in traffic.
Thank you.
Yes, I would support it. I think that we're not going to be able to pave our way out of this problem. I keep adding lanes on I-25 and I-70, so I think this is worth investigation.
My proposals for high-speed front-range rail, that means conventional, 70, 80 miles an hour. We can do that today. Of course, I would be excited if the new technology could revolutionize transportation, reduce our carbon emissions, and get people where they're going quicker and from less cost.
Yes, I would support spending state money to explore this and also to dream big about other ways that we can make our transportation problems less challenging and to integrate it into an overall economic development strategy.
For this next question, we'll take a yes or no answer and allow you 30 seconds after we have all those answers to follow up, so I want you to know that. But tell me, yes or no, do you believe rural Colorado is forgotten?
Yes.
It won't be when I'm there.
No.
Yeah, I do. I'm concerned that we've got 2 Colorados.
And Mike, on this issue of the urban-rural divide, how do you fix it? How do you solve it? How do you stitch Colorado back together?
I think this is one of the things that matters. You know, I grew up in the western slope of Colorado, so I have family all across the western slope, and they do feel like they are not seen and not always heard. And this is why, when I was a senator, I fought to pass Jumpstart, which was a proposal targeted at economic development just in rural parts of the state. Already it's had great success in Grand Junction. We've started about 11 or 12 new businesses, more than 200 jobs created. So I think it is about listening, and it is about showing up, and it is about making sure we know that everything is not Denver and Boulder. And that means people need different supports and different resources. That means things like broadband access, like skills training, and yes, incentives to attract businesses to grow and to stay in rural Colorado.
Jay?
Look, I'm excited that part of our infrastructure package is high-speed broadband and internet connectivity. We need to make sure we empower telecommuting, startup infrastructure in all areas of the state. It's exciting to see startup accelerators, co-working space in Montrose, Grand Junction. We also need to talk about how renewable energy, and our plan is to get our whole state to 100% renewable energy, can be a great source of jobs in rural Colorado. In the Eastern Plains, the renewable energy corridor of Colorado, having solar or wind on your property for farmers means extra income. Might means there's a job in town for your kid or grandkid in deploying or maintaining solar and wind energy to help power Colorado.
Thank you. Donna?
Your timer's not working, FYI.
Thank you.
So, the reason why I said no is because of a lot of the work that I think the Himmelberg administration done, and I've personally done over the last 2+ years. And that is traveling to all 64 counties. I've been to some counties 22 times. I spend almost all of my time outside of the Front Range. When the governor gave his State of the State address, rural was used 27 times. And I think you've seen a platform evolve of investment in rural communities. We just invested $100 million in broadband. We are working on rural health care issues. I love rural Colorado. It has a lot to do with why I'm running to be governor, is to change many of the perceptions and some of the realities in rural Colorado that we talked about before, like education.
Thank you. Carrie?
And when I served as state treasurer, I developed a program that's invested over $1 billion in rural Colorado, helping small communities build modern schools, replace their aging facilities, so that their kids can get the same high-quality education we have here on the Front Range. We have to make sure we're making the capital investment in rural Colorado. Right now, too much of it's concentrated here on the Front Range. It means making sure we have broadband available in communities throughout this state, and investing in things like placemaking and developing cultural arts and developing the outdoor recreation economy so that those communities can diversify, attract tourism, and see the kind of prosperity that we're seeing here on the Front Range.
Thank you. We have a question from a Facebook viewer, and this is Lori, who asks, or says, pot users have the right to smoke on their private property. What rights do I have as a non-smoker when the smell of my neighbor's pot infiltrates my home and makes my belongings stink to high heaven? Jerry?
Well, I think it's the same question as you have with if your neighbor is smoking a tobacco product too. So I mean, I think either way, there could be a nuisance effect if it's jeopardizing your health. I think that we need to put health and safety first for all Coloradans. So I mean, whatever you might be choosing to smoke, if it's affecting you and yourself and it's your own business, if it's affecting your neighbor, I think it's legitimate that the local authorities can try to figure that out in a way where you're not harming your neighbor.
Donna?
Yeah, and I think you've seen a number of actions that really relate to the state's concern, and my concern as a public health professional, to make sure that public safety and health, and whether it's tobacco smoking or marijuana smoking, is addressed through education, through what our Department of Public Health and the Environment does. And I agree, we've got to make sure that we look at the long-range impacts of smoking. I mean, we had a conversation in America around secondhand smoke that we didn't talk about 20 or 30 years ago, and we would sit on airplanes and everybody would smoke. So I think we've really got to focus on the importance of this as a health issue.
Carrie?
So odors from marijuana, like odors from other products, we do have ordinances that protect against what your viewer is concerned about. They can call the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. They'll come out and test that air and those odors. And we need to make sure that as we move forward as a state with recreational marijuana, that we are respecting private property rights and that those ordinances are being enforced.
I think that this is one of the many questions people have around the state, which is many people have supported the legalization of marijuana or were concerned are now wanting to make sure we balance this appropriately. And so I think one of the things is higher incursion on your own ability to not have things that smell in your house. I think that's a fair question, the same way it is with other nuisances. But I do think the other one is people want to know that we're going to, as governor, find the right balance between allowing this industry to be protected and to grow, and also making sure that it's responsible. So I was the chair of the Senate Finance Committee and had direct oversight over the marijuana industry, and so we worked really hard to solve some of the things I think we weren't prepared for early on, like around edibles. The fact that we didn't have standard dosaging, so you wouldn't know if there was 5 milligrams of THC or 100 in an edible, or that you had gummy bears or Twizzlers that were attractive to kids. Those are changes we've made with the support of the industry that I think also wants to see people be safe and be able to live in their home without that kind of intrusion. So I think the industry would be a good partner here to be able to say common sense steps that we've solved for tobacco, we can also solve for marijuana.
We'll move to another topic. Oil and gas drilling is big business in parts of rural Colorado, but there's tension between the drilling companies and homeowners. Do you think the mandatory setbacks currently in law are adequate to keep wells away from homes? And what do you consider a safe distance? Donna, we'll start with you.
Well, as you know, our current setback law is 500 feet. I'm open to a conversation about expanding that. I do think the 2,500-foot setback is not something that most people support. What we do care about is that public safety and health is our #1 priority when it comes to where gas drilling occurs. Now, actually, in a lot of rural Colorado, they are very welcome to gas and oil drilling because, in fact, some of it occurs on their property. The biggest challenge is more in the Front Range where we have that clash between home development and housing development and where the oil drills are located. But I would, as governor, strengthen the Colorado Oil and Gas Commission by making it a full-time paid group that actually spends the time without interference from their existing relationships to focus on the setback law in concert with our public health officials.
Where between 500 and 2,500 do you think is appropriate?
Well, I think it's arbitrary, quite frankly. I mean, 799 could be my answer, but I do think we've got to rely on professionals. I think it's an arbitrary number. We have to be concerned about noise. We have to be concerned about schools and some of the issues around location near a playground versus the actual school building. But my point is, there are professionals that can look at what's happened in other states, the impact on the economy, and the health data to make the decisions on whether 500 or 1,000 or 1,500 are the right number.
Gary, do you have an answer for this question?
John, I don't believe the current setbacks in law are adequate. I recently visited the Bella Romero School, where there's a huge drilling operation. There's going to be 20 and possibly even more wells that are just a couple hundred feet off the kids' soccer field at the school, not even 1,000 feet from the playground. And when you're standing on that playground, that is a huge industrial operation that is taking place right adjacent to where those children are playing. Now, that community spent a lot of time trying to get that operation moved just a little bit farther away. We have the technology today with this industry to be able to move those wells farther from places like schools and public parks and playgrounds. So I support giving our local jurisdictions the authority to make those setbacks longer than they are currently in law.
But you do currently oppose the 2,500 setback proposed.
I don't think we should have the same setback requirement for every single building in the entire state. What's going on in the San Juan Basin is entirely different than what's going on up here on the Front Range. I think we should give local communities, they are best suited to deal with these difficult land use decisions, and we should give them that authority.
Thank you. Mike, are the current setbacks adequate?
No, I would push back the current setbacks. I had a dinner with some families up in Firestone a few months ago, and they are neighbors to the two gentlemen who had a pilot light in their basement they had to fix, and went down into that basement to fix the pilot light, and their home exploded, and they were both killed. And I can tell you those neighbors are terrified that there might be other abandoned wells in their neighborhood that might be underneath their homes. They can't sell their homes because no one wants to buy them. They're worried about local schools. And that fear is only going to grow as there's more and more development across the Front Range. So I think this is a real challenge we're going to have to solve. And there are three things I would do as governor. One is, yes, I do believe we have to push back setbacks. Second is we have to make sure that we actually fix all of those abandoned wells around the state, 300, 400, 500 of them, that could be leaking gas into someone's home or into someone's school. So I think we have to resolve those. And then third is we have to get to zero leakage along all those pipelines so we're not putting people at more risk across the state. I think those are common sense steps, but I do think we need one set of statewide rules so you don't have every local city council and county commissioner having oil and gas companies come and negotiate them against each other for the best deal. I think there ought to be one set of statewide rules to protect all families and all schools, and that's what I would do as governor.
And how far away should those setbacks be then?
So I think 500 is not far enough. I agree that 2,500 is too far. I do think that you're going to have to require negotiations with stakeholders on both sides, because I think Don is right on this. The question is, it's going to have to vary based on what the current infrastructure is. We know if we went to 2,500 right now, you would actually almost eliminate every single oil and gas rig in the state in terms of the current setbacks. You have to look at what's currently grandfathered in and what new drills can be put at greater distance. But I think for all the new developments, technology is going to allow us to be much farther away, and we've got to set a higher standard.
Jared, 4 years ago, you financially supported an effort that put forward a number of different distances for setbacks, including 2,500 feet. What do you think is the appropriate setback, and is the current one adequate?
I think 500 feet is not enough. In addition, and I've been to Bella Romero Academy in Greeley. You need to measure any offset from any part of the school grounds where the kids have their educational program, not just from the school building. Under current law, it can actually be literally right next to a field where kids have PE. Needs to be further away, you're right. I've supported 1,500, 2,000 feet in cases where there's not a surface use agreement in place. Surface use agreements starting under Bill Ritter have been a best practice in terms of actually entering a contract with the landowner regarding where the oil and gas operation is sited. We need additional setbacks statewide, and we should be guided by science. Health and safety first. Objective data should guide our way, and it depends on what's being done where. And it's important to talk about the rights of homeowners and landowners as well, but we should not sacrifice putting any Coloradans at risk because of oil and gas activity that's too close to their home.
When you visited Bella Romero, you drew criticism from environmentalists who wanted the 2,500-foot setback. So what can you tell them? Where would it be? What is the appropriate distance?
Again, certainly more than 500 feet. When there's not a surface use agreement, I've supported up to 2,000 feet setbacks. I think that we can do this in our state. It'll be the challenge of the next governor to help make sure that we have the local control framework in place to give our communities a seat at the table, and to make sure that setbacks statewide are enough to objectively, and from a scientific perspective, protect our health and safety.
2,000, it sounds like? That's what you feel like is appropriate?
In a case where there's no surface use agreement, I think that there should be greater setbacks. Yes, I've supported 1,500 and 2,000 in the past. I certainly haven't changed my opinion on that.
Okay, thank you all. Most minorities have traditionally voted Democratic, so what can you promise to the people of color about nullifying the wage gap and other discriminatory practices that have historically affected our minority communities the most? Carrie, we'll start with you.
I'm glad you brought that up, and the wage gap between minority communities and their white counterparts is entirely unacceptable. In fact, it's grown in the last couple decades. So we need to make sure that policies that are holding these communities back from being able to advance economically, that we're addressing those at the state. First and foremost is making sure that we have a minimum wage in this state that families can support themselves on. I support giving local jurisdictions here in Colorado the authority to raise the minimum wage. The state minimum wage should be a floor. Local jurisdictions should be able to tackle that. We also need to look at enforcing our current labor laws. There are a lot of vulnerable communities that are being exploited, and we need to make sure that the protections that are in law today that are guarding against the exploitation of workers are being enforced. We can do more to implement family-friendly work policies, like paid leave, so that when parents bring home a child, when they're caring for a sick relative, they don't get fired for meeting their obligations at home. They're able to support, continue their income.
Thank you. Mike?
Thank you. So I'm very proud of the fact that I represented the historically African American Senate District for the last 7 years. I was the first legislator to open a community office up in North Park Hill in the Holly, in the middle of one of these neighborhoods that is affected by struggles with economic opportunity that is fair. And so I've had an office where over the last 8 years, anytime someone's trying to find a job and can't find it, they walk in my front door and they tell me what the challenges are, what they can't find. And I think what we're going to have to do is a couple of things. One is we have to make sure we invest in getting everyone the skills they need for the jobs that are coming. Right now, we know a lot of low-income families and a lot of families of color don't have access to the training they need that are going to get the jobs and pay middle-class wages. That's why I call it a promise to make that available to everybody. It also means I'm very proud of the fact that I'm a fluent Spanish speaker. I hosted the first all-Spanish language town hall so that our constituents who speak Spanish can have a governor who can listen to them in their own native language. I think that matters in this moment. And also to make sure we reform our criminal justice system. What we know is so many of our communities of color are disproportionately hit by a criminal justice system that right now criminalizes poverty and criminalizes mental health and criminalizes drug addiction. I would reverse all of those with my criminal justice platform, which also makes sure people have both economic opportunity and are not stuck in a system that's keeping them out of a job and out of their home.
Thank you. Jared?
Yo puedo hablar español también, Miguel. I also speak Spanish, Michael. You know what? I believe in the power of giving workers a seat at the table. Certainly I'm supportive of the ability to organize and organize labor. Employee ownership is another model. I kicked off my campaign in Colorado Springs at Save-A-Lot grocery store. It's 100% employee-owned. A majority of their employees are minorities. So building wealth along with earning an hourly wage, allowing local communities to set a minimum wage above the state minimum wage. Also addressing the long tail of racial inequities in pay, salary histories, making sure we have job equity in the public sector, including teaching, and the police force. And it's completely inexcusable that in this day and age, women earn 74 cents on the dollar compared to men. The very first constitutional amendment I sponsored when I got to Washington as a member of Congress was the Equal Rights Amendment. It's about time nationally, it's about time here in Colorado to end pay disparities based on gender and based on race.
Thank you.
Well, as a woman who's experienced some of this pay discrimination, I can tell you I'm very committed to solving this problem. And I think the state and the governor can actually play a pretty significant role in being a crusader and making sure that we don't have wage disparities within our own state workforce of 31,000. The second thing I think the state can do, and I'm prepared to do this, is to actually take a look at how the state spends its money in communities. Because the state gives money through contracts to a lot of vendors. And having a policy that not only counts how we do that, but encourages small businesses that are owned by women and minorities is a standard practice in most large cities in the country, as well as in many states, and I would implement that. I think the most important thing that we have to do is we have to invest in education, because some of that wage gap is based on a skills gap. And I spoke about it before, which is that equity gap in education that we have in graduation rates, whether it's K through 12 or it's higher education.
And we'll take another question from Facebook here, and Mike, you'll go first on this one. Pete wants to know how you will pay for your health care plan. All of you support expanded Medicaid. All of you want to expand coverage even further. How do you pay for it?
Thank you for the question. So, a couple minutes or a couple seconds about what I think is important here. One is we know that we've expanded access to healthcare. We have not dropped costs for healthcare. So we have on the Western Slope and the Eastern Plains some of the most expensive healthcare regions in the country. That's why I've supported offering a public option to allow people to buy into Medicaid to be able to get access to care, and to insist on price transparency so we would know how much your services cost before you go in, so you're not surprised when you get the bill 2 months later. And I think one of the ways that I propose paying for this is I think that it's an appropriate time to raise the tobacco tax, which is one of the things that we know drives long-term health costs more than anything right now, is tobacco usage. And we know that there are price-sensitive consumers where if they if you start buying cigarettes when you're 18 or 19, you don't have a lot of spare income. We can deter people from starting use of tobacco, at the same time create a revenue source that will allow us to invest in healthcare. The benefit of my plan is that the more people can buy into the public option, the more stable the system becomes, so it does not require subsidies, but it does allow us to fund things like expanding CHIP, which I propose so that every child in Colorado will be covered by insurance, and I'm the first one to propose to expand that.
Real quickly, 2 years ago, voters rejected a tobacco tax. So what would you do to fill that gap if they don't support it again?
Yeah, well, I think this is why you have to make the case to voters about why healthcare costs matter, why we want to bring them down. I think if we were able to go to voters and talk about what we could do to actually drive down costs, I don't think we effectively made that case last time. And what I think what people are seeing around the state is that this is one of the biggest problems we're seeing for businesses, for homes, for families. And so if we could connect why an investment in stopping the use of tobacco and expanding investment in healthcare would mean better coverage and cheaper coverage, I think that's something everyone in Colorado wants. Jared,
You support Medicare for all. Your plan is similar to one rejected just 2 years ago because of its $10 billion price tag. How's your plan any different, and wouldn't it go down on the ballot again as well?
You know what? You got to get the details right, and you need to show that you saved money. I was proud to work with President Obama to pass the Affordable Care Act, covering 20 million more people. I was proud to successfully stand up against Donald Trump's efforts to gut the Affordable Care Act in Congress. But our work isn't done. Colorado, as a forward-looking state, should be one of the very first states to not only achieve universal health care, but save people money. It's absolutely inexcusable that Americans pay 8 times as much for the same prescription drug as Canada, as Germany. This was brought home to me with a student at New America School who I got to know named Kimberly. Kimberly, like a lot of students at New America School, didn't have insurance, and she was a diabetic. She wasn't able to access preventative and ongoing treatment for her diabetes, and she needed a kidney transplant. The cost, many times more, a lot harder on her life as well, through the wait of finding a donor and the years of dialysis. Every other industrialized country has some form of universal health care, and they pay less. Americans are getting ripped off, and as governor, I won't give up until we stop it.
Amendment 69 had that $10 billion price tag on the ballot. How much would yours have?
The details matter. So again, Amendment 69, we need to go back to the drawing board and work with the business community, Republicans and Democrats, to come up with a model that is good for business, good for startups, and works and actually saves people money. I have no doubt in my mind that the voters of this state will approve a measure if we can demonstrate that it saves them money on health care without sacrificing quality, and it will.
Thank you. Don.
Well, I think being clear really matters when we talk about health care. First of all, universal coverage means everybody has coverage in Colorado. It is not a single-payer system. And one of the things that I've learned in my career in healthcare is I've been a patient like all of us. I've been a purchaser of healthcare as an employer, a provider, and a payer. And it's really hard. And you can't just say, let's have a slogan and let's get something done. I think the first step is a really, really simple one. We have 200,000 people in Colorado right now who are eligible for Medicaid. They're not signed up. And guess what? For many of them, the federal government pays 90% of the cost. So it will only cost the state 10%. One of the first things I'm going to do when I'm the governor is to hire the people that can go out and sign up those people. The second thing is the state employees, and I've managed this program here in Colorado and in other states, that is a vehicle by which we can use our purchasing power and clout to bring more people into the system and make sure that we are providing for small school districts, for municipalities, for small businesses, a way to buy health care in a bundle. It's cheaper, it's smarter, and it's easy. We don't have to wait for Donald Trump to be out of office. That's the only way we're going to get a single-payer system because it is a national conversation.
The state Medicaid rolls are burgeoning, and so is the cost. Can you expand Medicaid to these 200,000 extra people without increasing the cost?
Yes, and my proposal is not to expand Medicaid for the majority of people. As I said, we have 200,000 people that can come in. Many of them are healthier people. They've chosen to stay out, and as I said, 10%. That's a deal I'd take anytime. 90% from the feds, 10% from us to do that.
That may change. We'll have to see. Carrie, you support a public option for everyone in Colorado. How would you pay for that?
Yeah, I'm the only candidate on this stage calling to offer a public health insurance option for everyone here in Colorado. The problem, John, is that too many families in our state can't afford their health care. They're not able to cover the rising costs, the premiums, the out-of-pocket costs, the pharmaceutical costs. We can offer a public health insurance plan in this state available to everyone for less, and we should pass those savings on to everyone. It's something that we can do right now here in our state, which is a real contrast to the proposal that Congressman Polis has made. His plan, which was rejected by nearly 80% of the people in this state, would require the approval of President Trump and Congress. I don't think we can wait. I hear too often from families who cannot afford their health care today. We can offer a public health insurance option and make health care accessible and affordable to everyone here in our state.
I can mention, since I was mentioned in the response, I think we should not use Donald Trump's presidency as an excuse not to take action in Colorado. I believe that health care will go national someday. I supported Medicare for All since I've been elected to Congress 10 years ago. We can't afford to wait. Colorado should be among the first 5 or 10 states to implement a universal health care model that saves people money, and then we will take it national.
But this plan requires us to wait.
Okay, if you could answer very quickly. The Harvard Business Review recently found people who are more self-aware are more successful in executive roles. We want to know very quickly, if we were to sit down with your significant other, what would they say is your most annoying trait? Jared?
Too hard and don't take enough time off.
How much time do you have?
Don?
I am fastidious and orderly, and my husband is the exact opposite. He's creative and messy.
Karen?
I can't believe I'm going to say this on Facebook Live. I snore.
And Mike?
I generally like to always keep the kids up 1 hour later than they probably should.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you all for joining us tonight. This concludes our debate. We'd like to thank the candidates and our live audience here at the University of Denver. Thank you.
So, in studios right now for a panel discussion on tonight's debate featuring Denver Post guest columnist Mr. Hayford and strategy Simon Watson. So thank you all for your attention and for being here. Appreciate it.